What do you know about politics? What should you know? Forget views, beliefs, and opinions. Politics is really a science, and that's where we come in. Welcome to Inside Political Science. I'm Kirby Gordell.
I'm Todd Kent, and we're your guides to what's actually happening in politics. We're using our years of experience to navigate political data, media, money, behavior, and more to educate and inform you. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to a special broadcast of Inside Political Science. I'm Todd Kent, a professor of political science at Texas A&M University, and we're coming to you today from Passau, Germany. We have a special opportunity today to meet with young people and to talk about what does the future of politics look like, not only in the United States, but in Germany and Europe in general. So we're very excited to have some students with us. And to get us started, I'm going to have each student kind of introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves, and then we'll get started.
Howdy, y'all. My name's Keaton Levine. I'm 21, and I'm studying political science at Texas A&M.
I'm Felicia. I am 22, and I study journalism at Passau University.
Hello, thank you for having us here. I'm Malte. I'm also studying at the University of Passau, Governance and Public Policy, it is.
Howdy, I'm Colton. I'm 21, and I'm also a political science major.
Well, we appreciate you guys taking a few minutes to be with us today. Our goal is to kind of understand politics, not through the eyes of an old person like myself, but college students, our future, that we're going to all turn over this world to you soon. And then we want to understand what you're thinking. So when it comes to politics today, what are you and your friends talking about? Somebody want to start it?
I mean, it depends. Usually if there's anything major in the news, everybody will talk about it and will share opinions. But it kind of depends if the people are interested in politics or not. So I'm not necessarily always talking to my friends about politics, but generally, if there's anything huge happening, we'll converse about it.
So what's huge? What would be huge?
Oh my, okay. I don't know. Situations that really majorly impact us. So if there's elections, if there's big elections, that'll be everybody will be talking about it. US elections, German elections, all of that. If there's big decisions, but we don't really talk about minor decisions in parliament in Germany. We don't really talk about that.
I would say, me and Colton were just over lunch. We were talking about what's in the headlines. And right now it's protests in LA. So we were just discussing policy and what those actions of the government and then the actions of the state government, how they kind of are intertangled and how they affect each other. And then I think it depends on the person. At least me studying political science will tend to look at the policy side of it and the history that lead up to that point. But if I'm talking to a friend who maybe isn't as in that world, we're more of a business side, we're going to talk on the business side. So how does the policy of whatever is being enacted affect what they're studying?
I'd say the Middle East right now, it's a lot of very emotional for some people, just kind of the conflict going on. Definitely, America's a big melting pot. So just a big range of ideas on the answer to it and what's going on.
I just wanted to add to the German side that I think there's a rise in the frequency we're talking about politics, and that a lot of people that are actually not into politics still talk about politics here in Germany, and it's really news focused. So whatever the media puts out there is being discussed, and but overall I agree with the statement.
I kind of agree with that. I think that sometimes I'll see a distinction in students talking about actual politics and then just talking about what's in the news. I think there's always a distinction between the two.
Recently, both countries have had elections in the U.S. and Germany, and we've seen a change in governments within our countries. So, what's the political mood now among college students? You're to assess the mood of the students when it comes to politics. Are they hopeful? Not hopeful?
I think everyone is a little bit tired actually right now. Because just upfront the elections, everyone was talking about politics. It was really polarized, even in between us students. And every day you were talking about how this and this could affect the outcome of the elections. And right now we we've elected a new government and they're like doing their thing. And I feel like everyone is talking a lot less about politics right in this moment. We tend to focus a lot on American politics, actually, like where all the news headlines are about Trump right now, and I feel like that's the like talking about German politics. There's like everyone is like really tired right now and doesn't want to engage that much, right?
And whatever's happening is also very like subtle usually with German politics. There's usually not that big of like headlines about it, at least right now. I mean, there is a tendency on like college campuses that they're rather left leaning, like not that conservative. It's usually the tendency, at least in Germany. But I think, I mean, as you said, we're very big in like American politics because it's very much in the news. But in Germany, our politics, they kind of just go on. And if there's like something big happening, like the meeting between Merz and Trump or stuff like that, then we'll like discuss German politics as well. But there's just sometimes it's just very mellow and subtle and we won't really hear from it.
I would say, I think since I talked to, it's like everybody's just kind of watching. Like we just elected a pretty polarizing figure, and I think it was because that was the attitude that was going, that we felt like we needed a change. We went and voted and we got that change, and now people are, I mean, his name is in every headline. I think people are just kind of watching to see. I feel like every time I open up the news, it's like we're actually living in history. Like there's polarizing things every single day, and I think a lot of students are just kind of watching and seeing how it unfolds.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting times. You mentioned something. You said that most of the students on campus in Germany are left leaning. We saw in the American election, young people for the first time in a long time move to the right. What do you attribute that to?
I would say, like historically, I've always thought campuses are pretty liberal. I think the big shift, there's definitely a big one among men. I think they went more right in like previous elections, but also just like it's kind of like a trend of like populism and like change, and we're kind of moving away from the more liberal policies like the 2010s. And so I think just like a new perspective is kind of what fueled that.
I think that politics in America maybe had pushed some young people to places like they weren't really comfortable with, especially if you look at the South and the rural regions of the United States, that maybe decisions that were being made weren't totally their views, and it kind of got pushed there. And then I think that the campaign, they did a great job targeting students where they were, and they were on podcasts like these, like the last 2 weeks of the election. The Trump campaign made a deliberate push. They were on Joe Rogan, they were on Theo Vaughn, different politics that young men like ourselves are watching in tune, and it created like a relatability that I think secured a lot of votes for him.
I also feel like in general, younger people are more extreme in politics. They're not very center, if that makes sense. Because we have this thing that like the young elections, we had that prior to our elections, or I think during that time. And it's elections in schools. And I think the biggest party was the left party, and then the second biggest was the very right party. So I think it's generally younger people, they won't really go into the center of it, but they'll have a tendency of being on the more extremist spectrum because they probably also don't have the experience or political experience of like needing diplomacy. I don't know. That's just something I've seen.
But I feel like that also has to do with like social media and everything, because young people tend to be more on social media and like unravel the power of influence on social media. And noting on that, young elections, they are like a model election. Like obviously young people are like underage people are not voting here, but like we model elections in schools so we could see how future generations might vote. And yeah, you could see like a really high vote share on both extremes. So yeah.
So I've got a question for you PSAL students. When you think about relations with the United States, Do you think of it in terms of Germany-U.S. relations or U.S.-European relations?
Depends. Actually, like right now, with the meeting going on between Merz and Trump, and I think like the CDU, the Conservative Party of Germany, like has a tradition of like having a German US a connection and everything. So right now, a lot of the diplomacy is between Germany and the US. But actually, or for me, I consider myself a European, and I think over the last years, the European part has become a lot more important in all the stakes. And we, like, you can see that the European Union wants to integrate more and more foreign policy wise as well. So I think we are seeing a shift towards European American diplomacy, but German US relations are still really important too. So yeah,
I think it depends on the issue. If we look at like economical things, I think it's still very much Germany-US relations, because I think we're all, in that sense, we're kind of considering ourselves, well, we are our own economy. But if it's other issues, there might be like this sense of like Europe American relations. I think it depends on the issue.
Throughout our travels, we've had the opportunity we started in Berlin, met with some German government officials, moved to Brussels and really focused on the EU and just all the institutions there, and even NATO, and then finally ended up in Paris. And that's one thing it's hard for these students, and maybe they can in the U.S. can talk to this, is this idea that nation states would let some of their sovereignty slide to the EU. And you guys want to comment on that, or?
I mean, I thought it was really cool when we visited the European Union, because I didn't really understand that like it's a treaty. There's no constitution. It's just a collective agreement between the member states that we agree to give up this part of our sovereignty. And I think it is impressive. I think it's a very impressive experiment of the human experience. And I think it would be hard to ever do anything like that in the United States.
Yeah, I agree. I would say it's just like such a foreign idea to us in the States, because like we're so pro-American, and it's like I couldn't imagine voting to give up like some of those, our sovereignty. But it's been like, I think, a successful system here for the Europeans, definitely. I view you guys as Europeans more than like Germans, which is kind of, maybe it's like a political thing, but it's definitely a good system. I just can't see it for us.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think I just have like one critique, is that it seems like a very intricate system, a very bureaucratic system, that I think makes it difficult for European citizens to actually get to their officials and have their voices heard. And that's just what I observed in all the meetings, but you guys may have a different feel about it.
I don't know if it's that we don't get towards our officials. I think there's different officials in our government from the ones that are sitting in the EU. It's just difficult to get, sometimes it will be difficult to get like interests of one nation through all that, because it's an intricate process and it's a lot of bureaucracy. And yeah, but it's also, I think it's size issue as well. I don't know if that concept would work in the United States, because they're huge. Like there's a big difference in like size as well. So I don't know if you have any.
When it comes to elections, almost every U.S. election, because we have a two-party system, really, the way the rules are set up, only two parties can be successful most of the time. Whereas in Europe, we have parties, a party election. When we have elections, people always say maybe we should have a parliamentary system so that people's voices get heard. And then I hear sometimes in parliamentary elections, people say maybe we should only have two parties. It might be better. And I think we forget sometimes that the U.S. parties are made up of many factions within themselves. You want to speak to that? What do you think about U.S. elections only having two parties?
I
Two parties that win, I should say.
well, I do think that a parliamentary system, so like a system with many smaller parties, is more effective in representing actually what's going on in the country, because you'll be able to actually vote for the party that that supports your interests the most, and they will probably be in parliament. There are the very small parties, they won't be in parliament in Germany. There's a limit to that, but in general, you'll have a better understanding of where the society stands, and it's a little bit more diplomacy and compromise in it, because you need the coalitions to actually rule the country. So you need to compromise, and I feel like it's more a system that works for everybody in the country, and not for half the country. That makes sense.
Yeah, I have to agree on that. Actually, I was thinking about your comment that, for example, the Democratic Party or Republicans, it doesn't mind, it doesn't matter. Like already gave us like opinions, and when we go out there, they're actually made up of different groups. So you could argue that this actually means that it's quite similar to our system, but I have to agree with her that I personally like I prefer a lot our system over the two party system, and just because of the points that she said, and also I wanted to add that actually we have because of like just 5 parties that are bigger than 5% of the vote share actually get into parliament. We already like our parties in parliament are already bigger than particular interests, so they are not that small actually. So yeah, it's like a combination of letting everyone in and having all interests divided, and just having like 2 big groups. I think we are on or I like how we are just in the middle ground of that. Yeah.
So do you think that you get better decisions with this coalition government than you would with a two-party system?
Well, I think the decisions are more for everybody. I think it's more difficult to get a decision through. It definitely is, and it takes. I mean, we've seen it again with this election. It takes a long time for there actually to be it being somebody in power, because you need the votes and you need to you need to work together. But I think because there's so much compromising in it, the tendency is that when a decision gets through, it's a decision that was like thought out to be for everybody and not just for a limited group of people that voted that one party into parliament.
Well, let me ask you a hard question then. How do you explain if it's really a decision for everybody? Then how do you explain when new elections come, we have new party coalitions, because some people were dissatisfied with some of the way the decisions were made?
I mean, or you can ask, so I don't know.
I mean, we don't necessarily always have new coalitions. It's usually a set combination that is oftentimes in power. The one that is in power right now, we've had it for years. Prior to the one before, there was just one time that there was a different kind of power shift. I don't like. It's not necessarily a decision for everybody. It's not. Because there will always be interests that will not be supported in the government, because that's just the way politics work. And I just think it's more community oriented, if that makes sense.
Right.
Really. I think like the results of an election, they are like just the results of that specific moment, but nobody would be so crazy to have elections every couple of months, right? So of course, there's things changing in between 4 years. And you can see the same, like in the recent years in US elections, you had like 3 terms, but every term the opposite party got elected. So the people were dissatisfied too. Whereas in the past year in the US, like one party would like have a 2-term government, and sometimes even another president from the same party. ruling after. And here in Germany, we kind of have that shift too, that like last election we got a different coalition than right now, and a change in between the terms too. So the people were really dissatisfied overall. But at the same time, I have to agree with her that there is still like a sense of continuity here in Germany, like as, oh yeah, they're gonna, or it's like the coalition right now, they are like always the first thought of option here, kind of, because it's like combining center left with center right, and so they try to represent the center, or like the majority of people here in Germany, or at least they try to.
So you guys from the U.S., we've had a major shift in the government. You know, if you look last 4 years with the the Biden administration, we've got a shift. Is this a short term reaction, or do you think that this is going to hold for the long term?
I think it really depends on how this presidency turns out. I do think for the last election, it may have been a short-term reaction, and especially, that political candidate was still around for that 4 years. He still had a platform for that 4 years, so it's not really a surprise that he got reelected. But I'm curious how his presidency plays out, and if I don't know. I think that it might be a reaction. I'm optimistic in other people in his party and his running mate that they are maybe more towards the center than he is. They kind of have to, because he was still the face of the party, and it's all about power. You still kind of have to cling on to him to retain that power, and that once constitutionally his time is up, if the party kind of shifts a little bit back towards center.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a response to the last administration, this election. Just a lot of harsh feelings, I think. A lot of bad rep the last 4 years. So I think it was definitely kind of a change from that. I do see it changing again in the future, I think. There's a lot of, we've already seen like a lot of riots and protests this first 150 days. But I just think it's just like a response, and it'll just keep changing.
I think the midterm elections will be the greatest temperature check, because it's controlled by a single party all the way through right now. And so the House of Representatives has to go in about a year and a half and basically give their report card. And I'm interested to see what Americans, how they feel. And then I think that will be a pretty good indicator of how the next election will turn out.
My name is Max Crawford. I'm the Chief Meteorologist at KBTX.
I'm Ann Black, Executive Director of Opus. I have listened to Fresh Air every afternoon that I possibly could have the radio on.
I love Sesame Street because I love Elmo.
Can you tell me how to get to?
KMU TV and FM have supported community engagement with entertainment and educational programming.
KMU houses the technology that's responsible for issuing emergency alert system messages out to the community.
It's also a great source of information about arts and entertainment.
Federal funding in public television, public radio is being cut back and being threatened by federal funding reductions.
Join us in supporting KAMU by making a donation today. Go online to kamu.tamu.edu.
The world doesn't stop turning at the weekend.
The conflict erupted between rival military factions.
So this weekend, catch up with the latest global events with NewsHour from the BBC, bringing you news, reports and analysis from around the world.
This was a natural disaster, but enabled by the failings of government.
NewsHour from the BBC.
Weekend afternoons at 3 on Aggie Land's Public Radio, KAMU FM.
So let me address a topic that I think is interesting to both countries, and that's populism. Clifford Young presented a report from Ipsos for the last 10 years, they've done a 31 country study on populism. And one of their conclusions is it's not slowing down. We're seeing increased populism. So it's not just Germany. It's not just the U.S. It's kind of across. What do you think about populism in your country and in the future of that? And is there a way to maybe bring some more cohesion together? Or are we going to see this continued polarization?
Like, I'm not a fan of populism. I'm really against the rhetoric of populism to simplify and say that you have like the right answers to every problem. But as you stated, there's a rise in it, so we have to see how to deal with it, of course. I'm not too optimistic about reducing the amount of populism in politics. I think it will, with social media and the internet and extremist parties rising, it will we will see to continue a continued rise in populism as well. And I think one interesting thing is that established parties tend to be more populist as well, to bandwagon kind of. And I don't know if that's like the right decision. Right now, they try to win elections that way to be populist as well. But I think we should, as a society, confront populism and call it out for what it is, like too simplified, and to get back to a diplomatic kind of politics. I don't know.
No, you go.
I think, at least in the U.S., the rise of populism is definitely a reaction to, it's a reaction to previous administrations. And like you said, like the hard thing with populism is that they hop on bandwagons. And so I think over time, on both sides, the established parties are going to have a hard time just jumping from issue to issue, and they're going to have to go back towards their values. And I think that eventually the voters will shift back to that. At least that's what I'm optimistic of, because populism, they jump from one thing to another. I think voters will eventually get fed up with that.
I mean, I feel like populism really destabilizes politics in a major way. And I don't know if I see it shifting. I can't really say that currently. I'm a bit worried about the development of it. I think the only way to really work against it is maybe through education, like political education, and really having people go back to being more diplomatic and kind of looking at all perspectives. But it's also a very difficult thing to do, because we are like our society kind of is moving towards a very fast track society. So we need to do everything. We need to work a lot, and we need to earn a lot of money because the economy is not stable and everything. So I think people don't necessarily have the time to educate themselves, and then they will enjoy having parties present easy solutions for difficult problems, even if they're not actually the solutions. So I don't really know if there's a way to solve it. I'm hoping it'll be solved. But yeah.
I think y'all both kind of touched on like fighting populism, like education, combating it. I think the main thing is like for established parties to learn from it. Like populist leaders reach out, like connect people, obviously in a way that I think the older parties haven't been doing. So I think it can be like a really great learning experience for them to like look at their playbook, see what they're doing different, and then kind of integrating.
I still don't think that the solution is to be populist as well. And you can see that.
That would be populist, and like just like they're obviously not connected with.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is about like doing politics understandably and down to earth and trying to reach the voters like a true democracy should, I think. But the other thing is that you can see right now, like or German parties tend to be more populist as well. And I don't think that's a good development. Like that doesn't go hand in hand. Being more down to earth and being populist is not the same. And you can be closer to the voters as well, and at the same time tackle populism.
I kind of agree with Colton. I don't think it is beneficial. I don't think it's beneficial just to just disengage with them and push them away. I think they, in some form, they bring up issues that are true issues of voters, and the established parties need to see that and kind of take positions on those issues. I think if you just continue to ignore it, it's only going to snowball and become bigger.
I don't think we should ignore it. I really don't. I don't know if I feel like some people support the mentality of like, if it maybe works, to kill it with kindness. So find diplomacy and try to work with populism in some ways. I think it's such a wide subject of like, I don't want to support populism in any way, but I do also think there's things out of this that we can like learn from and maybe instrumentalize in a positive way and like spin it. I for sure think that's.
But I think that like the thing that I wanted to say is not that I wanted to not talk to the people or about the issues that populism talks about. I just wanted to say that it's like a rhetorical figure or like a tool you can use, and then we should stop using it and not like wanting to be as the populace, but finding a way to talk about the problems that populists talk about too, and to talk to the same people populists talk to, but don't use like the populist rhetoric, trying to find like I don't know, like a settled foundation on how like politics should be discussed.
Just quickly to kind of wrap up that topic, we think about politics in a way when you have democracy that it could be self-correcting, meaning if the government gets too far in one direction, the voters bring it back, and that's what we would hope for in democracy. So maybe we can hope for the same thing when it comes to populism, recognizing that populism didn't start last year or the year before. It's a long road that takes us to this where there's dissatisfaction, and now we have to work on this self-correction aspect of it. I want to, in our last remaining time, talk a little bit about you guys are college students, and I know that you're different than your parents. And we all, I think that's the kind of the essence of being a college student. When you engage with political issues, what's the most influential source of news for you? If you could kind of be specific, where do you get your news, your go-to to get information?
I know he is as well. We're big Apple News. I think he has a subscription on there. The first thing when I wake up is I have to like set up on my phone so I can see the top headlines.
See, Apple is a broad-based review of the news. What about?
So I like Politico, I like The Hill, and for anything like international, I do BBC.
Okay.
I would agree with Colton. I think that we may be a minority. I think a lot of kids our age, it's Twitter, it's Snapchat stories, it's stuff like that. But I was lucky enough. I had a good high school teacher. I'll shout out Miss Anderson. She showed me all sides and kind of the importance that there will always be a natural bias in media, and that it's important to read news from each side. I'm quick to kind of push back against the whole Twitter thing and like against established media, because I kind of think that the whole argument is that it's biased, but established media goes through editors. There's a process, there's fact checking, but we're so quick to believe what the average Joe says on Twitter. So I think the argument kind of falls apart there.
I think, well, I don't think we actually have Apple News. And I think for me personally, I very much rely on a new version of the traditional media. So we have a lot of subscriptions to different newspapers, German ones. I also have a New York Times subscription. And then I tend to I also follow those kind of accounts on Instagram. So sometimes that'll help because you just get them very quickly. And I have my push notifications on, and I get an email with New York Times in the morning.
Yeah.
And on Instagram, I follow Reuters as well. So the just agencies, because I feel like that's a very raw version of getting your news coverage. It's just, you just get the information and then you can do whatever you want with it and just look it up if you're interested in it. And then TV, whenever I'm home, we will have the TV on. Like the news, the 8 o'clock news in Germany are very popular. And whenever I'm home with my parents, they will be on every day. So
I don't like actually getting. I might be special. I don't know. I don't like getting news from social media because it usually for me it doesn't grasp like the true insight of what's happening, and also sometimes I just look at it for like seeing what people commented underneath, but just to make fun of them actually, not to get engaged as well. But yeah, I get news from like old newspapers, but on their websites. So I'm really big in just reading every day like the headlines and seeing which article is kind of interesting. But one thing I really enjoy to do for like more analytic approach or a deep dive into some topics, I watch a lot of YouTube actually. Like I have a YouTube premium subscription and will be on there sometimes like kind of in the night, like watching like a couple of videos on some topics I'm interested, or maybe there were like things happening, I don't know, say Ukraine a couple of days ago, and some analyst will upload a video for free on YouTube, and I really enjoy watching those kind of videos.
I think maybe that kind of represents a shift in our generation. I think if you would have asked the same question 4 years ago, it would have all been X or different social media sites. Maybe our generation is just slightly turning back a little bit because we kind of all answered the same.
Yeah.
And
Do you think you're more informed than your parents?
no,
Sometimes.
I don't necessarily think I'm more informed. I'm informed on different topics than they are. I'm much more informed about foreign policies and like foreign politics, and specifically like American politics, UK politics, these kind of. I'm much more in depth in these areas than they are, and they're much like they know a lot more about German politics. Sometimes they'll like tell me something or text me, but I talk a lot about politics with my parents because we're kind of close on the spectrum, I'd say. So we talk a lot about it, and but I wouldn't say I'm more informed than they are.
I would say at my age, I'm probably more informed just because of the access to information, how quick I can get it. I mean, I have a supercomputer in my pocket, so I can get information pretty quickly. Our parents didn't have that.
Yeah. I kind of feel like, my parents are really informed and they're really interested in politics as well, but they tend to watch like the Tagesschau, the 8 p.m. news here in Germany, as she talked about. And one thing I always see is that I'm a lot quicker. Like I know about news a half day before my parents do. And sometimes I engage them and talk about them, like say, "Oh, did you hear?" And they were like, "No." Still have to watch the 8 p.m. news. So, but once they watch it, they are really interested. And of course, they'll read news articles too and everything. So it's just that because of the internet, because of social media, I feel like I'm always on the news. Like I kind of know throughout the day what's happening right now. And they are like more traditional on like having specific points like in the day when they consume news and when they are not.
Yeah, I'd say definitely have a not more informed, so deeper understanding. I think they are very like they'll see a headline and like they'll just run with it, I think. Whereas obviously we study politics, so we know to look deeper into it. We know like check your different news sources, like watch the meetings, watch the interviews. So they just have there's just more basic, I think, their understanding.
So do they trust the old forms of media more than young people?
I would say so. Not as big as like social media as we are, but I do think I would argue our parents' generation falls like for social media stuff and like fake news more than we would. I think that we have a better eye for finding it, like picking it out and pointing it. But I feel like our generation gets like dragged into like you're so quick to like fall for it.
Yeah.
And I would almost say
I don't think we fall like I I do think that older generations are more likely to fall for fake news and stuff. I fully agree with that because they're not as technically savvy and like social media savvy as we are, and we've grown up with like learning about it as well, and gotten, like we had it like in school, they taught us about it, and they didn't grow up with that. It was fully new to them. So
Well, we just have a little time left, and I just want to end with one and just maybe a quick short response. What gives you hope about democracy in your country as we move forward in politics? You guys are college students, and you're going to move into taking over the countries here soon. What gives you hope?
I think the past, I think history gives me hope. I think if you were a European baby who lived through both wars, you would never see a world where 27 countries give up their sovereignty under one currency. And if you were a baby born in the 60s and 70s, you would never imagine the fall of SSR or the USSR. So I think the history gives me hope.
Let me think about you.
I think there's hope because, like, us as Americans, like, we have always got our way through. Like, we've always come back on top. I'd say you're like y'all as well, kind of in Europe. You've always come through like any battles, like we've gone through disagreements. So definitely just like we can continue to fight and like push through.
I mean, I think one really optimistic thing about this whole setting is that we're talking about politics and we're not the only ones right now. And the issues we discussed, a lot of people are discussing them, and you can read about them and all kinds of news as well. So the people are informed. Like at the same time, we see a rise in populism and simplified truth. We see also that with this, like with the same sort or like with the same tools throughout the internet, discussions like those we are having right now are spreading. So this is really good. This is how I think democracy should work, and then that gives me hope.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, I'm always a very skeptical person, but I do think if we move towards like more diplomacy and more openness about politics and hearing each other out as well, because we all might have different opinions, but it's very important to kind of learn from each other as well. I think that would just pave the way for us to get a more stable society, more stable politics. But yeah, I don't know if there's like, I don't know what's going to come.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the University of Passau for this beautiful studio that allows us to use today. Thank you for you students coming and give us your insight. Thank you, Colton and Keaton, for representing Texas A&M well. And that is Inside Political Science from Texas A&M University. Thank you so much, and we appreciate everyone listening today.
Thank you for having us.
Inside Political Science is a production from KAMU, Aggieland's Public Television and Radio. For more information, visit tx.ag/Inside Political Science. Have a question for our experts? Email them at insidepolicy@tamu.edu. Also, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss a new episode.